Well, for all of you from everywhere around the world, we have quite the international crowd here. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for being such an amazing support on social media, for those of you who follow along on the podcast, and for those of you who will be supporting me as I introduce this book into the world. So today I just want to give a little bit of an explanation of what Let It Settle is. And I want to take time to read the first chapter of the book to you so that you can get an understanding of how the book works. And if you'd like to pre-order, I'll be able to put that link into the chat for you. All right, so this is Let It Settle. So this is a book that I've been working on for the past about a year and a half. Wiley Publishing came to me and asked if I would be willing to take some of what I do on social media and try and make it into something that can be exciting and usable on the book format. So I've been working with editors and publishers over there, and it's been quite the process. So I'm excited you were the first people to officially see this, but this is Let It Settle, Daily Habits to Move You from Chaos to Calm. It's by me. So I'll walk you through kind of the table of contents and how this works. It's for you. Thank you for supporting me. So the book is put into three different sections, and it's all really about those different ways that create chaos in our life. And the three different sections that I've broken it into are first, those moments when we just need to find calm, those moments when we are facing emotional dysregulation, those moments when we are needing a moment of grounding, where we're not even in the present moment, and also those moments when we are facing anxiety and facing fear. And so what the book does is it walks you through different scenarios in which you might be facing chaos. And through storytelling, through either my own experience or through experience with the client, I take you through different tools that you can begin to utilize in your life, daily habits that you can incorporate into your life, as well as meditations that you can use in those times. So we have easing anxiety, facing fear. And then once you've had that more grounded feeling that comes when you begin to calm the chaos, then it moves into how do we learn how to come home to ourselves? How do we learn to start to listen to our natural inherent voice? How do we learn to cultivate that self-love? How do we learn to let go and head home to ourselves? And again, through that storytelling, beginning to give you those tools, tips, those daily habits that you can begin to incorporate, and then some meditations. And then once you've learned how to come home to yourself, how do we begin to honor the connection that we have with others and those things that create chaos within our life, that lack of empathy and understanding that we can so often have, the anger and how to navigate our way through anger. How do we learn how to lead with loving kindness for ourselves and with the world around us? And then how do we learn how to find forgiveness? And then again, meditations for this. So the book really does take us through different ways that we can learn how to come home to ourselves, to connect with other people, and to finally allow for ourselves to be comfortable to be in the chaos and have the tools to be able to move us through it. So I'm going to go through chapter 1, which is in the Finding Calm category. And this is called Letting It Settle. A gentle reminder. There's a lot going on in the world today. And if you've been feeling a heightened sense of emotion lately, I want you to know that you're not alone. The demands on adults today, personally and professionally, can be overwhelming because we exist in a time when a constant stream of information tells us what is wrong, warns of dangers and threats, and puts us all in a state of confusion and worry. You're expected to be so much for so many, and often it can feel like no matter how hard you try, it's never enough. All of this contributes to a feeling of unease, and the level of anxiety that exists daily can be overwhelming. Given everything going on around you, you may have no concept of calm. The thought of stillness may seem foreign, and while you know that something needs to shift, you don't know how to move yourself toward a life of ease. Most of us share a feeling of unrest, unease, and uncertainty about how to handle our emotions. It's a feeling that we're too much, too little, too angry, or too scared. That we're living in the extremes and never knowing who we are supposed to be. Beneath that unsettled feeling is a desire for peace, for stillness, for calm. Finding a space of calm is more necessary than ever. Between information overload brought on by social media and 24-hour news sources, increased demands for productivity, a breakdown of the boundaries between personal and professional life, and rising levels of stress and anxiety, it's essential to carve out moments of calm to preserve our mental and emotional health. I know it might not seem possible right now, but my hope is that by exploring the tools and techniques presented in this book, you can begin to find a way to connect back to yourself, become aware of what's going on internally, and gain the strength to be gentle with yourself through it all. None of this is easy, and some of the tools and techniques I share may not work for you. Finding calm is a process of trial and error and requires a great deal of patience. You're asking yourself to rewrite decades of learned behavior and beliefs. So if you find yourself frustrated, that's okay. But your peace is worth fighting for. And my hope is that together we can get you one step toward the peaceful existence you deserve. Understanding the power of letting it settle. A signature phrase that I often use while guiding meditations and in my coaching sessions is let it settle. I'm often asked to explain the exact meaning of the phrase. It's an invitation for you to allow your mind to find a place of rest, your body to relax, and your emotions to become less charged. The meaning of let it settle is quite simple, but where the phrase comes from is a much more interesting story. It doesn't come from any tenets of mindfulness or training that I received. Rather, it comes from my time spent in a preschool classroom. Before gaining my certifications as a professional coach and a mindfulness instructor, I spent more than a decade working with children. I often tell clients that the majority of what I know and what I pass on to them comes from my time in a preschool classroom. The work that we do as adults to find emotional regulation is similar to working with children who are bundles of emotion, just trying to navigate through life. It was in a preschool classroom where I learned the power of letting it settle from a 3-year-old named Jack. I met Jack and his family on the first day of his new preschool separation program. This was the first time that Jack was going to be away from his family for an extended period of time, so it was a big deal for him. He walked in, holding his mom's hand, and his bright blue eyes lit up as he saw the room filled with color and toys and kids. I greeted them and introduced myself, pointing out all the areas Jack could explore. While still holding on to his mom's hand, he went over to the brightly colored alphabet rug and began to play. He reached for a car and began to zoom it along the rug, making sure to yell beep beep when he passed anyone and to make crashing noises as he bumped his toy into the car of another child. The two boys laughed as they began to play together, slowly venturing away from the adults but glancing back every few moments just to make sure that their mothers were still there. And after a few minutes, when Jack seemed fully engaged and comfortable, his mom decided to say goodbye and leave the room. If you're a parent who has gone through the initial separation process, you know that it's not always easy. With a swift kiss and a promise that she'd be right outside, Jack's mom made her way to the door. I could see a rush of emotions come over Jack as he watched his mom walk toward the door. I watched as the toy car dropped from his hands and the physical manifestation of fear become apparent as his body became tense. His face started to flush and a flood of tears came. For Jack, his whole world had just changed. And the absence of his mother's comforting and safe presence, no toy in the world could distract him from his fear. In this unfamiliar place of fear, the only thing he could do was let the tears fall and rush toward the door to return to his place of safety. Often in those moments, an adult's instinct is to distract a child, to create a spectacle that would be so enticing that they would forget about their fear and join in on the fun. Occasionally that works, but it's not what Jack needed that day. In fact, the sensory overload of our attempted distraction was causing more stress for him and leading him further into panic. With each attempt we made to distract Jack, he grew more focused on his fear, and his sole intention was to return to that space of safety in his mother's arms. I sat with Jack for several minutes, trying to be as present as possible and to calm and soothe him. I hoped that he would begin to find a way to settle down, but it was clear that he just wasn't ready that day and was going to need more gradual separation process. I went into the hallway and discussed the situation with his mom and had her come back into the classroom. The moment she walked through the door, Jack rushed to her side and clung on even tighter than he had before. He sank into her, and in his return to safety, his temperature dropped. His breath became less shallow. The tears stopped, and eventually he was able to find his way back to the rug, grabbing the race car and zooming along. After class, Jack's mom and I discussed how to best move forward. Together, we came up with a plan for me to work with them to discover ways to help Jack find safety and security in the space. Our goal was to eventually, when the time was right, work toward a full separation during the class. Over the next few weeks, we tried a lot of different strategies with varying degrees of success. What finally helped Jack find comfort and safety in the classroom was a process that involved some of the mindfulness techniques I had practiced on my own in times of stress. Learning to settle. Teaching preschool wasn't what I had planned to do when I moved to New York. I graduated from college with a degree in music and relocated to the city to pursue a career on Broadway. Shortly after arriving there, I was fortunate enough to be cast in several musical productions around the world. One included singing with an orchestra touring China. It was an amazing opportunity to explore a foreign country and perform each night in front of large crowds with a full orchestra behind me. In fact, it had been what I had dreamed of since I performed in my first musical in sixth grade. But while it was a realization of a dream, it was also the start of a series of severe anxiety attacks. Many nights on tour, I sat in my dressing room, unable to breathe, and on the verge of tears. I forced myself to go on stage to perform. Then I went back to my hotel and experienced the anxiety all through the night. I kept this anxiety inside and didn't tell anyone. But fear of it happening again finally forced me to decide to step away from performing and give up that part of my life. By doing so, I lost something I cared about deeply. I recognized that I had to find a way to deal with my anxiety. Eventually, I found a meditation class where I learned the power of presence and grounding in times of stress and anxiety. While sitting in a yoga studio in Queens, New York, I found the technique that allowed me to calm myself during anxious moments. On a particularly anxious evening, Yuval, my meditation teacher, guided us through an open-eyed meditation that brought attention to our senses and began to teach a grounding technique called the 5-4-3-2-1 calming technique for anxiety. We began by bringing our attention first to 5 things that we could see in that moment, and then shifting our awareness to 4 things that we could touch. Next, we explored 3 things that we could hear and 2 things we could smell. Finally, Yuval invited us to find 1 thing that we could taste. This exploration of senses brought me back into the present moment. For the first time in months, my breath no longer felt labored, and a sense of calm washed over me. I could let my mind stop running and settle into that moment, feeling a safety I hadn't felt for a long time. That simple exercise became a consistent practice of mine in times of stress and was the first tool in my Calm Kit. It also happened to be the exact tool that Jack needed to begin to conquer his fears and gain independence in the classroom. Grounding in the present moment. At work, I'd start each day by sitting with Jack as he said goodbye to his mom. Although over time he had gained a lot of trust and felt comfortable in the classroom, the initial shock of watching her leave always caused Jack stress. I'd give him the space to feel into those big emotions without trying to make them go away, distract him from them, or imply that they were wrong in any way. I was simply there to be with him. Then I would begin to acknowledge what was going on. I would give his emotions a name and let him know that it was okay to feel them. I'd tell him that it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel sad. And it makes sense that those feelings are there. When I noticed his emotions starting to settle, we would begin to find ways to return to the present moment and explore all of his senses. Using the 5-4-3-2-1 calming technique for anxiety, I'd have him begin to look around the room and find 5 things of interest that he could see: a blue rug, 1; a red fire truck outside the window, 2; the white clock on the wall, 3; Mr. Michael's brown hair, 4; and Jack's red race car shirt, 5. Next, we'd explore 4 things he could touch, noting how each one felt. The soft feeling of shaggy purple carpet, 1; the smooth feeling of the art table, 2; the bumpy feeling of the race car wheels, 3; and the slimy feeling of the Play-Doh in his hands, 4. Searching for 3 sounds Jack could hear in the room, we would listen carefully and hear the clock ticking on the wall, 1; the garbage truck picking up the trash outside on the street, 2; and the Baby Shark song playing on repeat from the stereo, 3. With a big breath in through his nose, we'd search for 2 things that Jack could smell: the yummy smell of cupcakes on the counter, 1; and yes, most days, if he was feeling silly, Mr. Michael's stinky feet, 2. Finally, we'd get to walk over to the table and pick between 2 different snacks he had brought in that day and decide which one thing he wanted to taste. On most days, it was his favorite, goldfish, 1. With that final connection to his senses, Jack would start to step away from the fear and come back to the present. In that moment of present awareness, he was able to recognize the safety and comfort of the space that he was in, and everything would start to relax. His body would soften, the tears would stop, his mind would stop racing, and he'd simply let it all settle. From there, he would be able to experience everything that was around him and find the excitement of what was right there the whole time. Moving beyond preschool, I always held on to this image of watching Jack settle into the moment and seeing that fear melt away. Years later, when I started coaching, a corporate coaching client came into her first session and broke down. She had been holding on so tightly, pushing through the fear and anxiety to succeed, and although her life appeared perfect from the outside, internally she was struggling with something she couldn't understand. When given the opportunity to put words to what she was feeling, the floodgates opened, and she started to cry. In that moment, I saw her entering a state of fear and watched as her body and breath reacted to that fear. It was so similar to Jack watching his mother leave the room that first day, but this time the client was an adult who seemed to have it all. I sat with her and let her feel into her emotions for a moment, not trying to distract her or put any pressure on her to move away from the pain. I acknowledged her feelings, giving her permission to simply let herself be with them, and validated what she was going through. The pressure of the responsibilities placed on her would bring anyone to their knees, and that feeling was completely valid. As the tears stopped and the intensity of her anxiety and fear lessened, I reached back into my calm kit and had her move through the 5-4-3-2-1 calming technique for anxiety. The method wasn't as playful as in the preschool classroom, but as we moved through the practice, it was just as effective. As she explored the final sensation of taste, I watched as she sat back in her chair, sighed deeply, and let it all settle. Over the next year, we worked through a variety of mindfulness based stress reduction techniques and saw both her personal and her professional life transform. Whenever we'd meet, we'd start our session in the same way, taking a deep breath in, breathing out, and letting it all settle. Experiences like these two are why the phrase let it settle became my shorthand way to let people know it's okay to come back to yourself and settle into the moment. It's my small way of helping you as you work toward finding calm. End of chapter 1. So, with each end of the chapter, I also walk you through the process of letting it settle. So, for those of you who learn through story, we can listen to the stories and take that in and begin to incorporate that into your own life. And for those of you who need a more detailed, process oriented way of looking at things, I take you through the different steps, like creating a space of presence for yourself, acknowledging and validating the emotional experience that you're facing, grounding yourself into the present moment, letting it settle. It also gives you a calm kit tool. So this calm kit tool that we used here was the calming technique for anxiety. I've done this a lot on social media of having you find those 5 things that you can see. 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's how the book is kind of structured. And you guys are the very first people to get to hear chapter 1. So one of the things that I also do in the book, as I mentioned, was to have the meditations that are there. So I figured that we could go through one of the meditations that's in the book to help us find a little calm and stillness before we go back into the workday or before we go to sleep or wherever we are in the world. So the meditation that we're going to do is called the 4-point breathing technique. And it's one of the meditations that's the end of the Finding Calm section of the book. So to begin, let's just find a comfortable space, just allowing for yourself to root down into what's beneath you. And just allow for yourself to begin to connect to the breath. Just noticing the breath as it enters in and out through the nose, breathing in and breathing out. And then if it feels right and safe to do so, go ahead and close down your eyes, or you can just stay here with me. And from this space, feeling into the grounded feeling below, start to connect to the inhale in and the exhale out. Breathing in, breathing out, and letting it all settle. And now begin to notice how the air enters in through the nostrils and exits through the mouth. Just noticing the air entering in through the nose and watch as it exits through the mouth. Paying specific attention to the air as it enters in through the nostrils. And with a sigh, just letting it out through the mouth. Feeling that inhale, noticing the temperature of the air as you breathe in. And the temperature of the air, how it differs as you breathe out. Just taking a moment to breathe in and breathe out. And then start to draw that awareness to the air entering into the chest, feeling a rise and a fall of the chest with each inhale. Breathing in, feeling the chest expand outward. Breathing out, letting it fall back. Breathing in, feeling that rise of the chest. Breathing out, feeling the fall. As you breathe in and breathe out. And then just drop that awareness down into the belly. feeling the air enter into the stomach, feeling an expansion of the belly outward, and then breathing out, letting it come back to center. Feeling that full expansion of the belly as you breathe in, and then breathing out, just letting it come back. Breathing in and breathing out. And as we begin to settle, allow for yourself now to start to become aware of the edges of the body, noting the space between you and the openness of space around you. Start to become aware of the space to either side of you, the space in front of you. You're starting to note that space behind you, the space above you, all the way up to the ceiling and beyond. That space below you, feeling into what's beneath you, going all the way down into the ground. And with that awareness of space and awareness of the edges of you, begin to connect the breath there, feeling that expansion into the space. With each breath, feeling yourself getting larger, taking up more and more space, and then coming back to center. Breathing in, feeling that full expansion in every direction into the openness. Breathing out, letting everything come back. Breathing in, feeling that full expansion outward. Breathing out, coming back. Breathing in, giving yourself permission to take up space. And breathing out, coming right back to center. Just take a few moments on your own to just explore breath. Either that expansion into the openness of space, the connection to the nostrils, the connection to the chest, or the connection to the belly. Just playing with what it feels like in this moment to breathe. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And as you feel yourself begin to settle into this moment, start to once again become aware of what's around you. Allow for yourself to start to become aware of the sounds within the room. The sound of my voice, the ambient noises within the room, any noises that might be coming from outside. As you bring that awareness back to the breath, feeling into what it feels like to smell, breathing in and breathing out. With a gentle swallow or running of your tongue over your lips, just start to become aware of what it feels like to taste. And then starting to bring your hands together in front of you, start to explore what it feels like in this moment to touch. Perhaps even exploring the fabric of your clothing or the chair or something in front of you. And if it feels right and safe to do so, if your eyes have been closed, go ahead and flutter them open. Just take in the space around you and enter back, feeling connected and calm. So that is one of the meditations that we can do in times when we're feeling that stress, that anxiety, in times when we just need to let it all settle. to just let ourselves come back to center, to focus on those four simple spaces of what does it feel like to breathe in and out through our nose? What does it feel like to allow for the air to enter to the chest, to the belly, and then press ourselves up, giving ourselves permission to take out space? So, another meditation for you. And hopefully that will lead you on your day, wherever you're going, feeling a little calm. Just want to say thank you all for joining today, and thank you for being here. Thank you for all your support, as always. Again, the book is Let It Settle, Daily Habits to Move You from Chaos to Calm. I'm going to put the link to order the pre-orders. The book comes out on September 24th. So this is officially launch month, which is crazy to say because it's been a long time coming. So it's just michaelgallion.com/books is where you can have, I just put it into the chat, but you can find that on my socials as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get to see you all soon. Have a lovely day. I'll see you tomorrow.